Is that Jeff
Jeff
Bezos'
Bezos'
wife?
ex-wife.
She got remarried and
I had
now
a
she's
bit about it
divorced?
that I had to bail on the bit. Not even mean. It's not mean. The bit is that a woman worth she won $39 billion in the divorce settlement. So the bit was about a woman worth $39 billion marrying a dude worth $32
romance companionship or public partnership. She might be the architect of something much bigger, something that even Bezos himself is still waking up to as Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. Let the conversation breathe. Their silences said just as much as their words did. This was not a roast or an attack, it was a layered observation from two men who have seen behind the curtain and know that what glitters is rarely gold. They implied that Lauren is not just coasting on love or legacy but actively shaping it. She's in the strategy room, she's in the PR cycle, she's possibly in the meetings that shape space policy, billionaire optics, and cultural capital, while the public sees yachts, red carpets, and awkward viral dance clips. Those who watch closely see a coordinated rollout, a carefully paced ascent like someone managing a chessboard, not just reacting to it. It is no coincidence that Bezos' style became sharper, his confidence more performative, and his visibility more curated since Lauren entered the picture. This isn't to say she forced it, rather it hints that she understood the rules and pushed the throttle. She had done it before with Hollywood producers, news anchors, and tech execs, and now she may be doing it with the most powerful man on earth. She knows the camera angles, she knows the tempo of narrative, she knows that in this era, where perception is stronger than fact, influence is not about yelling, it's about direction. The way she appears at fashion shows, the way she holds back during controversies, the way she smiles just long enough to make people believe she's only there for the love of it. It's all a performance, and like any seasoned producer, Lauren understands timing. Her entire ascent has followed a methodical trajectory, from TV reporting to aviation, from background roles to billionaire inner circles, and now to a central seat at the most exclusive table in modern capitalism. It's a leap that few could imagine, let alone execute. And yet she has made it look seamless, as if this was always her path. Not a coincidence, not a flirtation, not a phase, but a mission. Joe Rogan referenced a curious rumor during
and had to overcome that. These are some experiences you know from growing up, because you struggled with dyslexia. So how did you get through that, and did that inspire this book?
This book is, I say all about that. It's for the 8-year-old self, me, who really felt dumb. And I did. I sat in the back of the class. I was just quiet, so they kind of pushed me along in public school, and I kept going. And then I really, really wanted to be a journalist. That's all I wanted to be. And I was like, I can't write. It was horrible. And then I went to community college, and I had this teacher, and she goes, I want you to write for the school paper. I was like, I can't really write. And she goes, well, just write without thinking about, every time I get really emotional, without thinking about spelling or punctuation.
And it's aware of the extent of her influence, or has he become a willing participant in a story crafted around him? Does he see the love or just the lens? Does he know the woman beside him, or the myth curated for him? Joe Rogan implied a kind of sympathy for Bezos, not pity but concern, the kind that comes when a man once feared and respected for his silence and strategy suddenly becomes a caricature of success. Shirtless paparazzi shots, over polished yacht parties, scripted interviews. No longer the predator but the product. Rogan and Musk were not judging, but warning that this transformation, while perhaps enjoyable on the surface, might conceal something deeper, a loss of self or rebranding so complete it swallows the real person underneath. It was said with humor, but the concern was real. It isn't about Lauren being evil or malicious. No one claimed that. Instead, it's about alignment, purpose, and the risks of outsourcing your identity to someone who understands image better than you understand intention. Because when love becomes management, when affection is fused with empire building, the line between devotion and domination can vanish quickly. In a world where even love is monetized, strategized, and weaponized, where every kiss becomes a press moment and every step a statement, it's hard to know where the person ends and the brand begins. And maybe that's what scares people like Rogan and Musk, who see themselves as rebels, unfiltered men carving paths with sweat and risk, not staging them with scripts and silhouettes. Maybe that's why they leaned in when Lauren's name came up. Maybe they've seen it before, watched other titans fall, not from failure, but from forgetting who they were in the glare of public adoration and private manipulation. Maybe what began as a relationship has become something much larger, something resembling empire consolidation, not companionship. And if so, then this story is not just about Lauren or Jeff. It is about how power bends love, how ambition rewrites history, how the richest man in the world might be living inside a palace curated by someone else. One smile, one whisper, one headline at a time, and if this is true, then what happens next will not be a breakup, it will be a cultural collapse. The tech titans fall not by scandal but by design. And the only question left hanging in the air as the podcast ended was simple but seismic: is Jeff Bezos still flying the rocket, or is he just the passenger? Now remember to subscribe for more inside stories like this and let us know in the comments. Was this love a fairy tale or a formula? Was Lauren Sánchez just a partner or the real pilot behind the biggest power shift in modern celebrity capitalism? The first time Lauren Sánchez appeared on the radar of mainstream media, it wasn't because of a scandal or a romantic entanglement, it was because she looked like a woman who knew exactly where she was going even before she got there. A former entertainment reporter with a sharp sense of timing, Lauren had already climbed many ladders before she ever met Jeff Bezos. What Joe Rogan and Elon Musk picked apart was not just her presence next to the Amazon founder, but how her entire trajectory seemed engineered long before the world knew her name. As a billionaire's partner, she had quietly and methodically worked her way into the aviation space, securing her helicopter license, founding an aerial production company, and embedding herself into industries that required precision, influence, and behind-the-scenes access. In the words of Musk, she wasn't just hovering over the scene, she was surveilling it, planning from above, seeing moves others couldn't even anticipate. And while most saw only the images of Lauren smiling in designer dresses, attending gala dinners, and yacht parties, her real moves were being made away from the flashbulbs in rooms filled with strategy, not champagne. This was a woman who dated media executives, formed alliances with Hollywood power players, and walked away from each connection not bruised but sharpened. She used each rung to prepare for the next climb. And when she met Jeff Bezos, it wasn't a meet cute, it was a merger of altitude, of direction, of long-term vision. In one podcast exchange, Rogan laughed, but there was no real humor in it. He recalled a Hollywood rumor that Lauren had once helped broker a silent media truce between two feuding entertainment moguls, not because she had skin in the game, but because she wanted to prove she could handle the delicate politics of power. That kind of subtle control fascinated Musk, who described her as a woman who could reshape a reputation without needing a press release. She simply knew who to call and what to say and when not to say anything at all. That level of social awareness and strategic silence is rare in Hollywood and even rarer in Silicon Valley. Yet somehow Lauren belonged to both worlds: the beauty queen turned pilot, the reporter turned confidant, the girlfriend turned architect of a billion-dollar image overhaul. Musk leaned in and said it plainly: not many people survive the heat at the top of this pyramid, and the ones who do are not up there because of charm. They're up there because they make themselves indispensable, and that's what she did with Jeff. She became irreplaceable in public, she enhanced him in private, she directed him. There's a story that never made headlines that during one of Bezos's key Blue Origin campaigns, it was Lauren who advised him on how to present himself to the media. Not just what to say, but how to stand, how to appear, when to hold back, and when to lean in. Not as a publicist, but as someone who understood the theater of power. She had studied it, lived it, embodied it, and by the time she entered Jeff's world, she was no longer just reporting the news, she was writing it, shaping it, even starring in it, without ever appearing like the lead. And Rogan noted that when Bezos's entire look changed, the body, the suits, the sunglasses, it wasn't the result of a stylist or a corporate team, it was a message, and Lauren had edited every line of it. It was the new Jeff, the visible Jeff, the Jeff who wasn't hiding in boardrooms but dancing on yachts and kissing his queen under Venetian skies. But the question that echoed in that podcast studio was the one no one dared to say out loud. Was this transformation what Bezos truly wanted, or what he was led to believe he needed to be? And if it was the latter, then who was truly leading the Bezos brand? Because it wasn't about fashion or love anymore, it was about control. And in a world where perception shapes value, that kind of control is worth more than shares in any company. It was power of a different kind, the kind you can't code or calculate, the kind you feel when someone walks into a room and everything shifts. And both Joe and Elon agreed Lauren has that presence, and whether that presence was built or born no longer mattered, because she had it and she was using it not recklessly, but strategically, like someone who knows the impact of every whisper, every appearance, every alliance. Lauren wasn't just surviving the game, she was running plays most people didn't even know existed. And if Jeff Bezos was smart, which everyone believes he is, then he wasn't just in love, he was also deeply aware that the woman beside him might also be the woman behind him, the one steering the ship. While he posed on the deck, they say power reveals character, but in some cases power conceals it, disguises it in glamour and orchestrated intimacy. And that's where the story of Lauren Sánchez deepens even further beyond the public facade, the curated Instagram posts and yacht appearances. There's a world of influence that even the closest insiders whisper about, and as Joe Rogan and Elon Musk dug into that territory, What emerged was a chilling portrait, not of a villain, not of a gold digger, but of a tactician, someone who understands that true control doesn't come from ownership. It comes from access, from shaping perception, from guiding narratives and making it look like it was someone else's idea all along. According to industry whispers, Lauren has long positioned herself at the intersection of opportunity and reinvention. Her friendships in Hollywood weren't social. They were strategic. Her relationships in tech weren't just romantic, they were informational. And her rise wasn't meteoric, it was managed piece by piece, photo by photo, headline by headline. She knew how to sit just off camera and still drive the plot forward. Rogan mentioned something barely known outside of entertainment circles, that during the early stages of Bezos's divorce from Mackenzie Scott, it was Lauren who allegedly initiated contact with major media firms, not with scandal in mind, but with story architecture. She reportedly offered a subtle narrative arc, redemption, reinvention, romance, a genius misunderstood, a man finally free, and a woman perfectly timed to complete the picture. The timing was almost cinematic, too perfect to be accidental. And as Elon added quietly, when stories are that perfect, someone usually wrote them in advance. And it begs the question, how much of Bezos's public metamorphosis was genuine? And how much was produced? How much of the jet stream lifestyle is his own? And how much was gently nudged into place by the woman who stood just beside him, never quite in the center, but never fully in the shadows either? And that brings us to a series of unnerving coincidences, because just as Bezos was reshaping Amazon and launching Blue Origin and redefining himself as more than just the founder of an online bookstore, Lauren was right there, not just as a girlfriend, but as an aerial strategist, a narrative consultant, a lifestyle architect. She piloted his visual rebrand both literally and figuratively, with drone shots of rocket launches, curated couple photos on red carpets, and interviews that subtly redefined their relationship as fate instead of finesse. And all of this while Jeff's circle seemed to shrink, not in size but in access. Fewer critics, more loyalists, fewer advisors, more allies, the kind who smile, agree, and avoid confrontation. And Rogan remarked with a grim smirk that this is how empires become echo chambers. And echo chambers become traps where a man only hears what he wants until one day he forgets what he truly believes, and somewhere in that silence someone else begins to speak for him. And that someone might just be Lauren, a woman who has spent years mastering her tone, her image, her silence, and who now may speak louder than any board member or brand strategist. And it's not that she's malicious, Elon was clear about that. She's intelligent, capable, and eerily effective, but the question is who holds the remote when the face on screen is Bezos's and the voice in the background is softly guiding him through every pivot. The risk here is not scandal, it's symbiosis. It's when identity blends with influence and two people become one brand, and one brand becomes a fortress of curated truth, staged moments, and untouchable narratives. It's a love story, yes, but it's also something more, a merger of altitude, ambition, and access. And behind that flawless smile might be the clearest vision in the entire empire. Because while Bezos looks forward to Mars, to media, to legacy, Lauren might be looking 10 steps further into the soul of the story itself. Because she's not just a character in his life, she may be the co-author. And if that's the case, then what comes next may not be a chapter he writes alone. Behind every curated love story is a timeline, and behind every timeline is a pattern. And when Joe Rogan and Elon Musk peeled back the surface of Lauren Sanchez's rise, what they found wasn't just a sequence of glamorous events, it was a map, a blueprint of ascension, precision, timed and obsessively maintained. They weren't calling her manipulative, they were calling her prepared. This was a woman who learned early that influence is not granted, it's extracted step by step from proximity to power and turned into presence. And when she stepped into Jeff Bezos's orbit, it wasn't as a bystander, it was as a co-pilot, a producer of his second act, a director of his legacy. And what disturbed them wasn't that Lauren was powerful, it was that so few people noticed how quietly that power had grown. There was no scandal to attach, no explosive tell-all or leaked tapes. Instead, there was a constant stream of control, quiet shifts in Bezos's branding, subtle modifications in how he presented himself, how he spoke, what he chose to reveal, and what he chose to let people assume. And those assumptions were valuable currency. The idea that Lauren was merely supportive, that she was just along for the ride, was perhaps the greatest narrative sleight of hand. And yet if you look closely, said Rogan, the signs are there. They always were, like when Bezos's entire lifestyle began to resemble a cinematic spectacle. Not the choices of a tech founder, but the tone of someone managing an audience. Shots of him shirtless in the Mediterranean, playing the guitar at private concerts, or posing on red carpets where every outfit told a story. And if you ask insiders, they'll say the same thing. None of this was an accident, and almost all of it passed through Lauren. First, Musk pointed out that in every elite power dynamic, Someone is always watching the edges of the frame, someone is always shaping not the words said, but the words remembered, and that someone in Jeff's life might just be the woman who arrived with a pilot's license and left with access to the most private corners of the world's biggest empire. This wasn't about seduction, it was about immersion. She didn't just date the CEO, she became part of the ecosystem. She entered Amazon's orbit, Blue Origin's launch plans, and every social recalibration Jeff undertook in the years following his divorce. And no one seems to know where her influence stops, or if it stops at all. And while fans and tabloids obsess over Lauren's dresses or dance moves, what they miss is the structure underneath the structure, where decisions are made based not on emotion, but optics, where love is filtered through legacy, and where even the most personal moments are formatted for maximum impact. Rogan laughed when he recalled a photo of Bezos and Lauren at an exclusive gala, saying it looked more like a presidential campaign than a date night, but then he paused because it was more than a joke. It was a warning. The more scripted a life becomes, the more the script replaces the soul. And somewhere between the fashion spreads and yacht launches, Musk argued that the man who once built an empire on ruthless focus may have traded clarity for choreography. That doesn't make Lauren a villain, it makes her skilled. But the danger is in what happens when no one can tell the difference between authenticity and production, when you no longer know who's making the decisions or if the decisions are even yours anymore. Because at a certain altitude, when you've left the earth behind and surrounded yourself with yes men and curated partners, the air gets thinner and reality gets harder to breathe. And that's where this story sits, on the edge of admiration and alarm. A tale not about romance, but about power, not about love, but about direction. And the deeper they went, the more it felt like Bezos wasn't navigating anymore. He was being navigated. And when Joe finally said maybe Jeff isn't at the wheel, it wasn't a punchline, it was the quiet truth behind the biggest tech love story of our time. So this is where it ends, or perhaps where it begins. Because part 5 isn't just about closing a chapter, it's about pulling back the final curtain and asking the question that Joe Rogan and Elon Musk never directly asked but made sure their audience couldn't ignore. Who is really running the Bezos narrative? Who is really piloting the rocket of image, legacy, and control? Because when the richest man in the world changes everything about himself, when he leaves the shadows of boardrooms for the glow of super yachts, when he trades privacy for performance and caution for curated charisma, people notice. But what most people don't understand is that these things don't happen in a vacuum. Billionaires don't wake up one day and decide to become rock stars. They don't suddenly start dancing in the streets of Venice, unless something or someone has guided that transformation. And when Joe and Elon started connecting the dots, it wasn't conspiracy, it was pattern recognition. Like any good strategist, they didn't need to spell it out, they only needed to suggest that Lauren Sánchez might not just be Jeff Bezos' wife. She might be the most influential unsung brand manager in the history of modern wealth. She might be the one person who has successfully blended intimacy with influence, ambition with aesthetics, romance with reach, and most importantly, timing with vision. And when you look at Bezos' timeline through that lens, it changes everything, because it becomes obvious that nothing was spontaneous. Not the helicopter rides, not the sleek European photo shoots, not the calculated media narratives about reinvention and rediscovery, not the speeches about optimism or the muscle-bound paparazzi shots that made headlines around the globe. It was a campaign, a deliberate step-by-step rollout of a new Bezos, and standing at the center of it, always just out of frame, was Lauren. The woman who had already mastered the art of airspace was now mastering the theater of public perception. And Joe said something that hit hard. He said maybe the most powerful people in the world aren't the ones holding the money, but the ones who decide how the world sees the money. And if that's true, then Lauren might be wealthier and influenced than most of us can even fathom. Because what she's crafted isn't a relationship, it's a fortress, a cocoon around Bezos made of flash and loyalty and luxury and myth. And when you live inside that kind of curated reality, who are you really anymore? What decisions are your own? What thoughts have not been optimized? What parts of your identity are still intact? And this is where the danger lies, not in love, not in companionship, but in the soft erosion of authenticity that happens when someone else becomes the narrator of your life. Musk called it narrative drift. When the story of who you are gets pulled slowly away from the truth until even you forget where the edits began. And in this version, Bezos is no longer the quiet, sharp tech founder building Amazon from a garage. He is now a stage character, a myth, a symbol. And symbols are dangerous because they can be rewritten, they can be controlled, they can be destroyed and rebuilt to suit whoever holds the pen. And so what started as a discussion about a billionaire's girlfriend evolved into something far more unsettling, a recognition that image is power, That loyalty is leveraged, and that in the hands of someone who understands timing like Lauren. Sanchez's love can become a ladder that climbs so high it no longer sees the ground. And when you've climbed that high, what happens when the spotlight turns off, when the story shifts? When the brand begins to fade, does the bond survive? Or was the bond always the brand itself? This is the question that neither Rogan nor Musk dared to answer, but their silence said enough, because they both know fame and fortune can isolate even more than they elevate, and they both know that when a man has everything, he often loses the ability to tell who's clapping for him and who's cashing in on the echo. And so they left us with this lingering truth, that love at the top is never ordinary, that every smile has weight, every embrace has implications, and every relationship has a return on investment. And in the world of Bezos and Sanchez, nothing is without consequence. Not a kiss, not a quote, not a curated Instagram post, because every moment has been touched by strategy, every headline has passed through filters, and every legacy is being molded even as we speak. And while some may still believe this is just a fairy tale of a powerful couple redefining love, others know it's a masterclass in media architecture and influence engineering, and how to stay at the center of the world's attention without ever appearing to demand it. And that is perhaps the most stunning achievement of all, that Lauren Sánchez could stand in the eye of the storm holding the hand of the world's richest man and still make it look effortless, still smile like none of it was planned. While behind her, every move has been charted, every connection leveraged, every silence calculated. And that kind of brilliance isn't something you can fake. It's something you train for, something you prepare for over years of working behind the scenes, learning who to trust, learning when to speak, and learning, most importantly, when to let others think they are in charge. And that's why this story is not about Jeff Bezos, and it never really was, because the final twist, the one that Joe and Elon left unsaid, is this: maybe the person we thought was leading was never truly in control. Maybe the narrative of wealth and romance and reinvention was authored not by the man on the yacht, but by the woman behind the camera, the strategist in red, the co-pilot who saw the skies before anyone else did, the one who never needed the throne to be queen, just the right timing, the right man, and the right mission. This video covers legal allegations in a news context. All claims are from official filings, and no guilt is implied until proven in court. Please keep all discussions respectful. Allegations are not facts until proven in court.